Before I begin the video, I would just like to express my sincere gratitude to you guys. I did not expect to get as many views nor as many subscribers from the last video as I did, and you guys made it happen. Thank you so very much, and I hope I can continue to entertain you guys with my content and with my rambling. With that out of the way, I hope you all enjoy. So, I've been playing Zenless the past few days in between doing my dailies for WUA. Funnily enough, the reason why I picked up WUA in the first place was because I was looking for a game to tide me over until Zenless released. You know, when I first saw the trailer with Billy Kid, it made me want to try a gacha game for the first time because, the action looked sick. The guy looked and sounded like Deadpool. That's my kind of thing. It just felt like it was right up my alley. It just so happened that Wuthering Waves came out first, and I fell in love with that game. So how do I feel about Zenless now that I've spent as much time on it as I have? It's not what I expected, in all honesty. I knew that the game wasn't going to be like Wuthering Waves, and it really isn't. But even with my expectations on the game lowered to try and avoid disappointment, I still feel like the bar was missed. Why is that? The problem that I have with Zenless that was well avoided by Wuthering Waves is that getting to the best part of the game, the combat, is extremely tedious. That's why I'm here. That's why I picked up the game in the first place. Yes, the game has a wonderful cast with voice acting that absolutely runs circles around Wuthering Waves. Yes, the game's music is arguably as good, if not better than WUA, and yes, the story is definitely a lot more enjoyable than the release version of Wuthering Waves. But those aren't the reasons I approached the game in the first place. Those were nice additions that should enhance the core gameplay loop, the combat, the fighting, right? No. The problem is, the game forces you to go through so much tedium before you can actually get to the part where the combat is actually engaging and not just an exercise in how much you can beat up a target that can barely fight back. When I played Wuthering Waves and needed a break from the story, I could just fuck off from the storyline and start doing holograms and red enemies whenever I wanted, and that was fun. With Zenless, you have to progress the story, you have to engage with the TV system, and you have to battle limp enemies, and it gets so exhausting. Yes, I have gotten to the point where I can do rally missions, and my lord, did I need this kind of content several hours ago? Why did these have to be buried so deep into the gameplay experience? It's so frustrating because it would not have compromised their vision of a game that's easy to get into and hard to master. It would have enhanced it. I'm not asking for insane mechanics on our characters. I don't need Tekken style movesets where each character has like 100+ moves that they can use in a battle each and every single time I go into a fight. What I need is I need a competent enemy, someone who I can actually oppose against and have this dance with, the same formula that the Dark Souls games have, where you might not have the most complex movesets, but your enemies actually give you a reason to use everything in your ability arsenal, dodging, parrying, and hitting your riposte and stuff. They needed to have enemies earlier into the game that could challenge you in that way, and I feel like they push the interesting enemy units into the late game, and it makes the early game extremely unfun. If you're not the kind of person who would enjoy the game's aesthetic and story, then this game just isn't for you. I cannot recommend anybody a game if they have to spend 10 or so hours just so they can get to some actual fun gameplay, and I would rather push you in the direction of Wuthering Waves. For everyone else, Zenless might still be the game for you. Now I can actually happily report that the game's combat system is incredibly enjoyable. It perfectly hits a casual enjoyment that can be taken to a more sweaty level if you choose, but it's not completely necessary for you to have fun with the game. Right now, my favorite lineup is composed of Anby, Grace, and Corin. See, characters in this game are divided into roles that each provide their own benefits to a team. The roles we have are Anomaly, Attack, Defense, Stun, and Support. Anby is objectively the funniest character in the game. I don't care what anybody says.
I will be making a voice log of my experience. Let it serve as evidence for future investigation in the case I am killed or turned into a monster by the ether.
She is a stun character, and what that means is that she's great at breaking an enemy stance in the same way that you would break an enemy stance in Sekiro and Wuthering Waves. The extra sauce that Zenless brings is that stunned enemies grant you the opportunity to do chain attacks. This is basically their equivalent to Wuwa's outro and intro system. The difference is that it's a lot simpler in Zenless. When you hit a stunned enemy with a heavy attack, which is usually done with either a special attack or the final hit of a character's standard combo, you basically go into a state where you can swap into another character and have them do this special attack to deal big damage. So you can get these big combos off where each of your characters are doing some insane shit before you end it with whichever character you want to take advantage of the opening and deal even more damage. The second character in my roster is Grace, who I got in my first 10 pull, including her W engine. Just to make it clear, I am a complete free-to-play. She's an anomaly character, and that's basically your debuff specialist. Unlike Wuthering Waves, elements aren't just there to color code your damage for resistance and vulnerability purposes. Each enemy has a bar that you can fill by damaging them, and once you've hit that threshold, they take a debuff. In Grace's case, she does electric damage, so lightning will start arcing the nearby enemies and damage them as well. A fun extra effect from the electric debuff is that it actually shuts down robotic enemies while the debuff lingers. Last, and certainly not least, is Corin.
Watch out! Are you hurt? Phew. Good, my apron's okay. Nice to meet you, investigators. I saw through it.
An absolute mess of a person who is drowning in anxiety and low self-esteem. Why do I like her? Chainsaw. Chainsaw? Chainsaw. She's an attack character, and her living her best life just involves cleaving a filthy heretic in half with her chainsaw, and yeah, I don't really have much of a justification beyond that. I just fucking love the chainsaw gameplay. It's just a lot of fun. With their powers combined, I have been able to handle a large majority of the game while still having a good fun here and there. An aspect to the gameplay that I really should touch on though is the TV system. My love-hate relationship with it is a lot of the reason why I took such a long while making this video. I love it in the sense that as a D&D player, it gives me the space to imagine the story scenarios that happen within the TV space. See, the TV system is basically how the game codifies the travel between the combat zones. It gives a very tabletop RPG vibe where you're mainly working with the theater of the mind and you're basing your imagination of what's going on through the visual cues with the icons on the screens or through the dialogue that comes with the characters. I love the system as a concept. The issue is how the TV system absolutely kills the pacing of the game. From what I've heard from people's feedback in the CBTs, the devs actually cut out at least half of the TV system, and I'm shocked. This is the cut down version of it? Whenever I'm doing anything relating to the story, I always feel like the combat could have just gone on a little bit longer, and the TV sections could have just been a little bit shorter or faster. It's like having a meal at a restaurant getting served, and the appetizer is a much larger portion than your main course. It's a completely baffling design choice. There is at least one thing I like about the TV system though, is that it serves the game's aesthetic beautifully, and beautiful is exactly the word that should be used when addressing the game's aesthetics, because come on, you can't tell me that's not cool. The vibes of the game are absolutely immaculate. It reminds me of the colorful world that was designed for Jet Set Radio. It feels both nostalgic and cozy while still feeling fresh and new, and that is a hard line to toe when designing a game's art style. I'm quite enjoying this urban, semi-post-apocalyptic setting because it feels very realistic to a certain degree. We see people that have adjusted to the frankly nightmarish reality of the hollows and the ethereals, and that adaptability to harsh conditions and still being able to live a fulfilling life just feels really human, and I think that's why it meshes very well with me specifically. And speaking of the themes of the game, I do want to talk a little bit about the story, and I gotta say, it's not an absolute 10 out of 10, but it's been a fun romp. I am not going to spoil the details, but the story so far is a fairly episodic one, as you and your sibling take on various quirky clients and agents to grow your reputation and become the top proxies. See, you don't actually play as the main characters in the combat zones. Hoyo didn't bother making low-tier main character units, and instead the main character serves as this eye-in-the-sky guide to the agents through the hollows. In short, you are the Paimon in this game talking in their ear. And it's really fun because I like that they gave the sibling dynamic between the two characters some depth to it. You're not just playing characters that you're putting your own personality into. Both Belle and Weiss have their own personalities, with Belle being like the more messy sister, while Weiss is the more calculating and put together sibling. They're very fun to see interacting with each other. It's actually, as someone who has siblings, it is a very relatable experience. And while the story doesn't take itself too seriously, there are a lot of good emotional beats, and it's all presented very gorgeously. I love the comic style story panels. The art was done with a very professional quality, and it brings me back to the comics I'd read as a kid. For the 90s Filipinos kids out there, there was this magazine that was published monthly called K-Zone, or Kid Zone to be more accurate about it. And it was basically a magazine that was filled with a variety of content that was catered towards children and teens. I absolutely adored that magazine, and I might just make a video about it in the future. I actually still have a copy of the 100th issue, and it's still in relatively good condition, all things considered. But back to my point. That magazine has a comic section with the publication's own characters and storylines, and the comic style presentation in Zenless just has a very similar style towards it, and I really, really like that. And I think I can speak for everybody when I say that the cinematics are absolutely fucking breathtaking. I'm going to assume that's where all the budget went, because good lord, they really, really, really did a good job on making these cutscenes very pleasant to look at. The characters' expressions are very readable. You're not really wondering what's going on in their heads. If a character frowns, you can really read that emotion. It doesn't look awkward at all, and I absolutely enjoy the breaking of the character models so that they can make them move with a lot more expressiveness to their body. And the music, good god, the music. I have no notes on these. I was told that Hoyo never misses with their soundtracks, and I was not lied to at all. And finally, I would just like to mention the world and the exploration. Even with the relatively small size of the explorable areas you can walk around, they did a tremendous job packing in a lot of fun details for you to resonate with. As a massive foodie myself, it was such a joy to see the animations for the cafe and the noodle shop. I actually get excited to do my dailies just to see the animations happen. I mean, just look at this. And with that, I think I'm going to wrap this up. My overall thoughts on the game right now is that I absolutely enjoy the hell out of this game. Now that I have moved past the boring parts, I do want to emphasize that the tedious parts are very pronounced, and it's not going to be an experience for everyone. But if you think you can get past that, you'll find a gem of a game with a lot of great mechanics, passion, and silliness that I find to be very welcoming. And I am definitely going to be playing more of this game, grinding it out, and making more videos about it in the future. Just don't interact with the community right now. It's an absolute dumpster fire, and everybody is at each other's throats. The game is divisive, to say the least, and it is mainly because of the issues that I mentioned earlier. Give it a couple weeks to simmer down first, and we'll see where things are when cooler heads start emerging. Once again, I am very thankful to you guys for the overwhelming support in the last video. I did take a lot longer in this video than my usual pace because the surprise of having such a large number of people coming in kind of flashbanged me a little bit, but I've since recovered, and I am absolutely overjoyed to see that I got new subscribers coming in. Thank you guys so much. You know, I didn't expect to be hitting 50 subscribers this fast, but you know, now that we're here, let's try to see if we can get to 100. If you guys have any thoughts, any violent reactions, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment below. I absolutely love interacting with you guys, and I am very eager to keep that going. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and I hope you all take care of yourselves.